RNC. Thank you guys so much for coming. We are so excited to talk to all of you. So you guys just heard from Patrick about some of the stuff that he's doing at Blue State Digital. I thought it would be helpful if each one of you could walk through what you do, what your relationship is with email, and some of your learnings from not only the past campaign, but just how much the digital landscape has changed in the past year.
Great, thank you. Aria Finger, I'm the CEO and chief old person at DoSomething.org, and that's real, my staff thinks I'm ancient. So we are an organization that has young people aged 13 to 25, and we have 5.5 million members all across the globe, but predominantly here in the US. And our whole goal as a nonprofit and a technology company is to get these 5.5 million young people, and growing every month, to take action on whatever cause they're passionate about. Homelessness, poverty, discrimination, trans rights, cancer, disability, global poverty, global warming. And our relationship to email is tenuous at best. So a lot of our young people, even if they have, iPhone, Android, they don't even have email enabled. We actually use SMS as one of our primary channels to engage young people. Out of that 5.5 million members, we have 4 million of those on our SMS list. And if you see someone named Freddie, Freddie is the mastermind behind our entire SMS program. And they send out a text every other Tuesday to our 4 million young people. And don't let anyone ever tell you that Republicans are good for nothing, because Gerrit just told me that my 4 million subscribers was like best in class. So we have so much in common, and I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. That was awesome. And I love lots of other Republicans too. But what I think is really critical, whether we're talking about engaging young people to go to a homeless shelter on the corner, or we're talking about getting young people to vote, or perhaps getting young people to give to a political candidate. And we're completely nonpartisan. We want young people to vote for whatever candidate they're excited about. But it needs to be engagement that's holistic. We heard a lot about the transactional fundraising email, and that can work for Barack Obama, and that can work in the short term, but we are just sort of paying down the debt in a terrible way, because we're just losing more and more young people. They don't have party affiliation, voter turnout is low, and part of it's because we've been treating them so transactionally. And so what Do Something tries to do is talk to young people as a whole person. If you don't know about an issue, we educate you. We talk about empathy. No matter who's in office, we still need to do a lot of empathy building on the local level. We give you ways to volunteer on an issue, and then we give you ways to call your congressman or get out and vote. But it can't be this one time, once every 4 years or once every 2 years situation. You have to engage someone long term on the issues that matter to them. And even more than that, it's just marketing. People like me do things like this. That's why we all do anything. And so if we don't focus on sort of this bigger culture shift, especially when it relates to young people who are just getting into political age, I think we're going to lose them forever.
I think that's really insightful. You're sitting next to one of those awesome Republicans, Zack Christenson, a Scout.
Not a Republican, but yeah.
Oh, no. Not a Republican. That's right. Scout works with because you run connections to both sides. Talk to us about what you do and how you're working with both Republicans and your experience.
Yeah, so Zack Christenson, CEO of CrowdScout, and so we're a software platform made for advocacy in politics. And so what it is, it's essentially a CRM and data analysis platform. And what it tries to do, and I think it's a lot of people in this room do for their brands and corporations, is knock down the silos between all of the different barriers between their different departments and all of the data that's used. So, your average organization has canvassing data and phone calling data and texting data and consumer demographic voting history. And what CrowdScout does is it brings that all together and builds holistic profiles of everybody in your audience. So all of those scary stories that you hear about, a campaign, a campaign knows more about you than Amazon. They're using software like ours. There's other people in the industry to gather that and then build out models and build out predictive models and custom audiences so that they can better target and deliver the right message to the right person at the right time. So we have a lot of customers that use our software. Again, as we've already talked about, is using email for fundraising, right? Being able to pull all of these things together and build out the right custom audiences so that you're delivering the right message to the right person. On top of that, our platform allows you to really contact anybody really any way you want, whether it's text messaging, whether it's email, whether it's sending your custom audiences for canvassing, or whether it's sending your custom audiences to phone banking tools. So it's really about pulling all of these things in together and making sure that your messaging is hitting the right targets.
And last but not least, we have Gerrit Lansing. Gerrit, can you sort of walk us through what your day looks like, what it is that you do, and what you do with email?
So I left both those jobs about a year ago, but I'm a partner at an agency, sort of full service agency, and then also a partner at a direct response marketing company, sort of focused just on online advertising for e-commerce corporate space. So, however, in my previous sort of official political capacity, really came up in the email ranks, a lot like Patrick did, and would agree that, unfortunately it's become this, or it started out as this ATM, right? And so the organizations got hooked into this drug where if you got emails, then money would come in, so let's get more emails and get more money and go back and forth. And I think it is a destructive thing over time, but it's a hard drug to break, right? Because these orgs live on this money. And so my job was largely at two national party committees was to build this list from scratch, which is a brutally difficult, hard, awful thing to convince hard money organizations to spend money to grow a list that you're not going to see any returns on until the last 2 months of an election when 60% of the money comes in. That's a tough accounting job to convince people, but now we've sort of gotten over that hump in the last 8 years, and people see this now as assets. That's how I always refer to these emails or SMS is always call them assets because assets are things you invest in, things you keep, things you protect, and that's how you ultimately win budget, which is really the key to any email program is getting the budget to go acquire those emails.
When it comes to sort of political email, how it works, can any of you give some examples of the sheer numbers? Like how many people are you trying to get on these lists? What is the return? How much do most people spend or contribute when they get an email, etc.?
I'll do it quickly because I think all the numbers are pretty much the same. I mean, it's typically for a faceless acronym like the DNC or the RNC, it's like anywhere from like 10 to 15% of that list are going to donate. For a candidate with a brand, Hillary, Trump, it's going to be 18, 19, 20, 21, 22%. Frequency is usually 1.3 to 1.5 gifts per cycle. That's over 2 years. Average gift is like $45, $50, a little bit higher on the right than the left for some reason. And so, when you're building out that budget, you say, I want to raise $100 million, and that's how you work that out to say, okay, well, then I need this many emails, and the cost per email is $250 or whatever, and that's how big your budget is. Unfortunately, I live in a spreadsheet like that a lot of my life. So.
Anyone else have some numbers insight to share?
I would say those numbers more or less track with what it's like on the Democratic side. I would just add to it, I think one of the ways, like Gerrit's mentioning, like we're talking about hard money organizations, like all these organizations have existed, like the RNC and the DNC have basically existed for over 100 years at this point. And like a lot of those organizations, like they've had the same jobs all the time. And I think one of the ways that digital got a seat at the table in these organizations, per a point Gerrit made, is like we showed up one day and we were like, we produce free money. We're the computer kids. We can make money appear out of thin air, more or less. And as a result, I think we are expected to deliver metrics in a way that like no one ever goes up to a press secretary for an organization and says like, what were the metrics behind that press release you put
Amen.
out? It's just like, it's accepted that like that's an important thing to do, whereas people come to email and they're like, how much money did you raise this month? And like that's the only metric they're judging your success or failure on. And I think that's sort of why we are where we are.
When it comes to what we saw over the last cycle, what are the things that completely surprised you, blew you out of the water when it comes to responsiveness of emails, open statistics, stuff like that?
Honestly, Bernie Sanders, everything Bernie Sanders did. truly some of those numbers were crazy. There was one stat where it's like, so there's a federal donation rule where you can only donate $2,700 per cycle, and many people who donate just donate that $2,700 and they move on. Bernie Sanders, something like 99% of his donors in like September 2015 were eligible to make another donation, which is that just really showed the power of all that grassroots fundraising.
And what would you say were the biggest learnings? I mean, technology has changed so much from this cycle to 2012. What did you learn this cycle that you didn't know before?
SMS is going to kill email.
Talk to us a little
Amen.
bit more.
You're the one with the 4 million person opt-in.
I mean, we don't fundraise from our members. We don't activate anyone in the same way. We don't think in political cycles. But I'll give an example of what we think about that. So, Do Something's list of 5.5 million young people over-indexes young people of color, especially Latinos. And so the day after Trump tweeted about DACA, we knew that this was an issue that we had to take on. And so we were like, okay, we got to do something about it. And there was a few surprising things that happened. So we sent out an email to, say 3 million young people, and we sent out a text message to 4 million young people. And, email open rates for us are low. I mean, like 20% is a dream. And for SMS, our open rates are, 95, 96, 97%.
And do people feel invaded when you're text messaging them versus hitting their inbox?
We don't see that. We don't see sort of large disparities. Again, the magical Freddie who's sitting in the audience every week, I mean, we, A, B, C, D test the shit out of every message and make sure that if there's more than a, 1% opt-out rate or whatever it might be, we don't send a message. We make sure that we're sending it at a time. People have opted in to get that message. So I think you need to be sending it at the right time. But so you send someone an email telling them to call their congressman about DACA. It's like, okay, you get the email. You have to look at the subject. You have to open it. You have to click through. You have to go to the website. On the website, it'll give you the different number depending on where you are. So like the funnel is like 5 clicks long. Where if we send someone a text message, you can literally just click on the link and we directly. You call your congressman right there, and not only that, we can see what time of day did you call, how long the call was, like we can track all of those metrics so much more easily. And so, the day after that happened, we had 90,000 people just from SMS sign up for the campaigns that we were running, and we were the largest referrer to the debate.
And talk to us about what is the difference between email acquisition and phone number acquisition?
For us at least, it's pretty similar. You have to be careful that you're not spamming people, and you have to make sure that folks are actually opting in. The best way for us to have folks opt in via SMS is through web. So it's a web to SMS conversion, but again, sort of no harder than anything else. The problem with SMS is it's really expensive. So that's the problem.
The SMS is the best way to get people offline to online in terms of acquisition. Like if someone walked in right now and they said get all of these people and like on your email list, I would want to do that via SMS. You can have your campaign principal, your candidate stand up here and say, text go to 47246, and that's like they're not going to go to a website, type in their email address and sign up that way. So we saw that was a really good source of acquisition on the campaign.
I think that there was like two really interesting things this past cycle on both sides of the aisle. One of them has already been echoed, which is SMS. But the way the Sanders campaign was using SMS and text messaging was amazing. One of the things that I think that you see is now. We talk about this a lot, which is the democratization of campaigns, and everything is turning into a platform. Everything's available as a platform to campaigns large and small. And so the Sanders campaign was using a platform called Hustle. I don't know if you guys use Hustle. They were one of the first SMS peer-to-peer texting campaigns, and you can have an office full of volunteers texting one-on-one with potential attendees of events or donors or things like that. And really that powered a lot of what the Sanders campaign, the grassroots movement that they had through the cycle. The other one is something sort of completely different, which Gerrit can probably talk a lot more about it, which is I think it's pretty obvious the power of Facebook, but we really finally saw it in 2016, and the way that was used as a lead gen tool, both for email and fundraising, but then also being able to use it for message testing. And being able to test out, because of the new ad tools that Facebook provides to you, being able to quickly test different messaging with different images and different colors and that sort of thing to different audiences, because you can build out these audiences, you can test a million different variations of things. And that was really interesting, and we hadn't really seen it on this level until this last cycle.
We're learning so much about digital fraud, bots, fake accounts being used by bad actors to manipulate messaging. Do you experience any of that with email and SMS?
I don't know, not really. I mean, because maybe, I guess bots could sign up for an email.
So would you say that potentially one of the reasons that SMS has such a high return rate is because you don't have a prevalence of fake accounts clouding
It's
that
actually
atmosphere?
not that. It's the fake accounts exist, but the carriers have throttled 80% to 90% of the text messages that go through. So every single day, you're getting hundreds of text. You're not getting hundreds of text messages that have been sent to you, and so it all actually has to do with SMS throttle.
Very interesting. So would you say that moving into next year's midterm election or even the 2020 presidential, what are some things that you think are going to be different then versus now? What are going to be new technologies, new tactics, et cetera? What are you exploring?
The big thing that's coming in text messaging is rich content services, RCS. So this is going to kill a lot of apps where Android is working out the technology part of it. Apple, as usual, is going to wait and come in a couple of years, but what this does is, like, in the future, a couple of years, you'll just text Uber and then a car will come and find you. And if you want Grubhub, whatever, like all those app things where you have to like get out and go find the other app will just be done in messaging. And it'll be just an app inside message. So that'll be the king. And so being inside that inbox and having an opt-in and having a way to get to it is going to be a massive advantage.
I was just going to say, it's something that I echoed in terms of what we're going to see in 2018 and 2020. I think 2 days ago we saw the beginnings of it, which is sort of a much more people-powered movement. And being able to, we're talking a lot about digital tools up here, email, SMS, and using data. I think the interesting thing that you'll see is a lot of it, well, a lot of the just tools that are sort of kind of cutting edge right now. I guess texting isn't cutting edge, but that's sort of just starting to being used, is going to be used on a much grander scale across the country, down to like your local school board elections. All of these platforms are available to people. If you're a person who's never been involved in politics in your life, and you want to run for your city council, and you don't know a political consultant, you don't have money for a political consultant, you can go out and you can sign up for free for a fundraising platform, and you can go out and sign up for free for a political CRM, and you can go up and sign up for very low cost for phone banking tools and canvassing tools. You can run ads on Facebook without like knowing anything. So you're going to see, I think, a lot of democratization of the way that campaigns are run.
I just wanted to jump in with some data that I saw that I was truly surprised by, and I shouldn't have been because it's my industry. So you're talking about the difference between 2014 and 2018, so the midterms, where again, in the political world, no one forgets about them, but outside of that, everyone forgets about them. And in 2014, if you look at the youth vote, which to me is just 18 to 25, if you look at that subset of the population, the turnout was 17%. So that means that less than 5 million young people, 18 to 25, voted in 2014. And so think about that. 5 million people, I mean, that's nothing. And so the midterms also, compared to the presidential election, of course it's harder to get people out, but the number of people we're talking about is so much lower that the opportunity to grow is so much greater. And so that's one of the reasons why Do Something is so excited about the midterms, because, I mean, we have a list of 5.5 million young people. If we got all of them to vote, we would raise the youth turnout by 10%. So just exciting the possibilities when you're starting from such a low baseline.
Yeah. I think, too, from like a more theoretical perspective, I think, for those of you who are, experienced corporate or nonprofit email marketers, it would probably horrify you, some of the deliverability practices we use in the political space. There's CAN spam, the federal anti-spam legislation, because Washington is exactly as corrupt as you think it is, exempts political campaigns and committees from it. So technically we don't have to abide by a lot of those things, and people have taken too much advantage of that. But as a result, Aria mentioned a 20% email open rate. There are some times where I would kill a person for a 20% open rate, right? That's very good. So I think you'll probably see political campaigns and candidates start to take deliverability practices more seriously. They'll probably start to apply life cycle marketing principles to people. So we're not just doing a very, we call it churn and burn, where you just get people on the list, you knock whatever money out of them you can, and then send them into the abyss.
For those of you who work, Gerrit, I know you're at Image. Zack, you work with a bunch of different kinds of clients, as do you, Patrick. For those of you who work with clients outside of political or advocacy, what lessons and learnings do you take from having done political, email, fundraising, persuasion, et cetera, that you can bring to other types of clients?
That's a great question. I think it's a little bit what I showed up here in the last item. There's a type of email tactic in the political space called supporter record, where basically you just spit out here's your supporter email, here's how much money you've donated, how many times you've donated. And you can do that. We've done that with volunteering. We've done that with voting in some realms. I think about the reason that's effective is I think it should, supporters are surprised that you're registering their activity and their information, and they feel as a result of you registering that and sending it back to them, it's showing that you value it more. And I think about how we can do that for a lot of nonprofit fundraising clients a lot.
Yeah, so we one of the things that one of the things that political campaigns do, or they're starting to do, that we don't see with a lot of our other customers, is tracking that entire customer journey, all the way from first click on an ad, all the way through, for a political campaign, it's a donation. We can track things they clicked that ad, we know which ad it was, we know which campaign it came from, they landed on your website. Then we can track those page views, which articles did they look at on your site? Did they look at the education section of your site? Did they watch a video? How long did they watch the video for? And then what eventually drove them to donation? And so we can track that entire customer journey, and because we're getting their email address and we're getting their postal address, you can start running it through all these other data filters, right? So you can ping it up against the voter file, which is public and available to anybody. It's not actually available can't use it for corporate interests usually, but you can start to pull in things like voter history, consumer information, demographic information. You can know a lot about people, and so combining all of these things together, you can know a lot about what's driving people to donate, and you can build audiences so that you can your follow-ups can be that much more targeted, and that much the emails are going to be opened more, and they're going to be responded to more, and they're going to drive donations.
I think what I've found in corporate is they're just incredibly slow, and it's super painful working with them a lot, and they need to develop more of a war room campaign philosophy, which is doubly painful because a lot of them have distributed workforces, and being able to react in real time to a competitor or the news cycle or product stuff is to a great degree a function of physically where you're sitting. Every night on a debate night on a campaign, everyone gets around a table. I always wonder why they don't just always sit around a table, like the other nights of the campaign aren't as important. And they're starting to see some of that where you rearrange in this team-to-team style. But corporations have, that's a big problem for them, and Slack and these places can't solve that perfectly. They do. It's gotten a ton better with Slack and some of these management tools, but having an always-on presence is a tough thing for a company to wrap its head around. So that's something that sort of war room philosophy and being present, being on all the time is a big thing that we're fighting against.
Yeah, especially when that corporation has the agency in one city, the marketing team in another city, the headquarters in another city. It could be crazy. Do any of you have questions for our awesome panelists? I know they'd love to answer anything that you've got. If you do, just sort of raise your hand and we'll get a mic over to you. Some of you might have your hands raised and I don't have my glasses on, so that might be a problem. Nope, we have one over here. And if you could say your name, you can tell us a little bit about you as well.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I work for a growth marketing consulting firm called Maze. And I'm wondering, so political emails in your inbox look really different than emails from brands, like are super text heavy, like they're just like entirely different than emails that I would ever send. And I, not ever having worked in political emails, are like, well, why? Like, why can't we just send beautiful emails, like not put the messaging in the email, put it on the landing page? But obviously, like, you guys have tried or tested, or like, there's a reason you're sending what you're sending, and I would just love to know, like, why that is.
Zach?
Yeah, Patrick doesn't have a microphone, but he probably is the best one to answer this. But the answer is because they work really well. If you were on the Obama campaign, so you can probably tell the story better than I. But you know, all of these emails are A/B tested to like crazy, right? There's millions of different variations of these emails that go out, and sometimes it seems like the uglier that you make the emails, the better they perform, right? If you turn the donate button to some ridiculously ugly green, that converts better than like a beautiful blue or something like that. So the answer is just because it works. But I'm sure Patrick can tell you all about that, yeah, because he was the one running it.
I'll give you a more depressing answer than that. Sorry, I feel very cynical about this. It's easier, it's quicker. I think a lot of these campaigns, and this is a huge problem in the Democratic Party. We don't pay people at the level of their talent, and we lose them to organizations that pay them more. If you are a deputy digital director on, Sherrod Brown's re-election campaign in Ohio, who's the person running that email program, you are probably 1 year out of college. You probably don't have a ton of email marketing experience because we're not paying you a lot of money. And I think it's easier for that person to type up an email, code that email in like fairly simplistic form and send it out. And like hiring designers who can do things at like a high level of design, and as Gerrit was saying, at the speed it's required to do it's hard. They do exist. There's not that many of them, and it's hard to retain that type of talent, honestly.
I also think, though, I think both of those things are true. It also, though, I think seems like you don't send beautiful GIF graphic emails to like your girlfriends when you're going out on the weekend, right? You just send a text, right? It's like words. And so it looks more like a human is behind the thing. We also found, though, that like there's so much demand for content across all these channels that if you can repurpose content from a channel here over to here, then you've won yourself an extra half hour that day. We started last year, we were taking, it sounds so stupid, but it worked, taking emails and making them into videos and then running those as ads. People would be scrolling through Facebook and then they just get the email in a video that was scrolling up. It works, right? Facebook.
We have time for one last question over here.
Simple question. You talk about the email as a ATM, okay, but the email people don't get the money. Where does that money go? What's the channel that the political people are putting that money into that they think works better?
I don't know. Can you?
You mean where is it reinvested? Like you get the money on email, and then what do you do with it?
Well, I mean, what does Google do with revenue they make on search? It goes to the central thing, and then they use it to do R&D for.
So TV is sucking all the money out of.
Oh yeah, I mean that's okay. So then there's this whole media mix conversation. I mean, it goes to the central bank account and then you've allocated. You got staff and field team, and then media, and it goes to pay for all those things. Well, it does. I mean, if you're doing it right, you set out at the beginning and you say, this is how much I need for this whole time. However, you increase, a hard thing to overcome is to have dynamic budgeting set up, right? So I've used to run into a lot of house campaigns who would be spending $1 on search and getting $1.10 back. Whoa, all right, so put as many dollars in as you can until you stop getting 10 cents back. But they'd be like, oh no, we budgeted $5,000 this month for search, so we're gonna, as soon as we hit $5,000, we're gonna come down. So that's this whole dynamic budgeting problem where 20 years ago, before the digital nerds showed up, like there just wasn't that problem. It was like, okay, money came in on direct mail, throw it on TV, wipe your hands, and you're good. We've complicated the matter a lot more, especially since 60% of the money you're gonna raise online comes in the last 2 months. And so you have to make pre-allocations for that, but then you get flooded with late money, and there's few places to spend money wisely late. So it's a complicated problem. It goes wherever you think you can get it up. I mean, if you make an extra $1 million in the last week on something, you know, you're buying a football game on TV, I guess. There's no other place, you know, where do you go? It's hard to allocate.
Yeah, and especially with campaigns, and I will even say it's more extreme than what Gerrit's saying. I'll tell you, on the Hillary campaign in 2015, the entire year of 2015, we raised less money than we did in the month of November 2016, which was 8 days. We raised more money in those 8 days than we did in a year. And the truth is, like, when you're raising money at that point, like, you're just sort of paying for things you've already spent money on, honestly.
Thank you so much to our awesome panel. How about a round of applause? If you don't feel like you got enough today, the hashtag is #InAwe17. We're all on Twitter, so feel free to engage with us. Thank you so much to everyone that was in the room and everyone that was at the live stream, and we hope to continue to talk to you soon.